satellite uplink established. Welcome back, Commander.
So, a while back, the Command & Conquer Ultimate Collection was ported over to Steam, but it wasn't just a simple port. It also included an update that made it more compatible on current systems, and also added more modern resolutions, and included the map editor for their corresponding game. Previously, you had to go and look it up and download it from some unofficial source. Now it's included. That is awesome. I'd also like to highlight that on the Command & Conquer Remastered Collection's community forums, Jim Vasella had spoken up and highlighted the first Remastered Collection. This brought up some speculation of, are they remastering more? Are they working on something else that they're not telling us yet? Was it a typo? Was it a simple mistake? I don't know, but I'm gonna make him regret it. Because now that phrasing opens up the possibility that there could be another remastered collection in the works. And the next logical titles that to be remastered would be Red Alert 2 and Tiberian Sun. So, for this video, I'd just like to discuss what would be my hypothetical inclusions and hopes for the remastered collection involving Tiberian Sun and Red Alert 2. First, let's get the quick one out of the way. Red Alert 2. Honestly, to me, Red Alert 2 is simply RTS perfection. Has an iconic soundtrack, has an art style that holds up even today, solid gameplay, and everything I love about Command & Conquer, all done exceptionally well, and it stands the test of time even today. So the question is, what can you do to Red Alert 2 to make it feel like it earned a remaster? You could try making it 3D, but overall I think the art style of the original Red Alert 2 and Yuri's Revenge is pretty timeless, so there's not really much that I would say could be improved beyond that, as long as the scale doesn't get shrunk down. But for a proper remaster, there is one thing that comes to mind. In Red Alert 2 and Yuri's Revenge, there was a mode that was multiplayer exclusive. It was called Unholy Alliance. Whichever faction or nationality you pick, you got one of each faction's MCVs. This was a cool idea, and I loved playing it when I got the chance, but there were some limitations that restricted the potential of that mode. You might have, in Yuri's Revenge, 3 MCVs right at the start, but you still have to build up each tech tree separately. There's no crossover. You can only build one structure per category, so you're going to end up focusing on just your main faction, and the other's going to just kind of sit there and wait until you feel you're ready to start building up that tech tree. So it's not as chaotic as I would like it to be. To improve this mode then, perhaps what we can do is introduce the sub-tab system that was introduced in later games. Like in Command & Conquer 3, where if you have multiple production structures, then you get these sub-tabs that act as a separate build queue. That could up the chaos of this mode and overall increase the potential speed of a match in the late game. I would also like to see Unholy Alliance available in Skirmish against the AI, where in the original Red Alert 2, you could only play this if there are other human players. You couldn't play this versus the AI on your own. It had to be online. So I think this would be a nice addition to Red Alert 2, and of course bring it up to Yuri's Revenge standards, because there were some things that were kind of antiquated, like in the skirmish and multiplayer modes you couldn't actually choose your starting location or starting team in Red Alert 2, but that was all fixed in Yuri's Revenge, so yeah, of course, bring things up to that standard. Could also carry the sub-tab system into Tiberian Sun as well. Speaking of which, Tiberian Sun is the RTS that I want to say is my favorite because it does so many things that I absolutely love, like the simple inclusions of the walls and gates to help make a base feel more permanent and secure. I love that. I like the designs, I like the setting, I love the Tiberium life forms that they introduced, I love the story. It was all really cool, but there were some things that stacked up to make it one of the more frustrating Command & Conquer games, especially in the campaign side of things. So for a Remastered Collection 2, Red Alert 2 I would say would get a remaster, but Tiberian Sun I feel would need something more akin to a remake. Starting with mission designs. Yeah, this might start to sound like a repeat of my first Command & Conquer Remastered suggestions video. But this time, these mission designs, there are some that are okay, but there are a bunch that are absolutely obnoxious, and I have absolutely no idea what some of their intended path to victories are supposed to be. Like during the Nod campaign, early on there's a point where Vega had taken a alien ship that Kane had secured in one area, but Vega decided to take off with it, crash it, and now you're supposed to go and recover an artifact from it, and you have to deal with patrols and then figure out a safe route to get to the artifact and the crash site, and then a truck will just take an artifact away, and then you have to figure out where that's going, and then you have to go and intercept the train and try to destroy it and then pick up the artifact. But this mission is just so obnoxious where I have no idea what the intended route of success is supposed to be. And videos I've looked up, it seems that everyone else did basically what I did, which is just rush it. Rush the train and grab the artifact, done. But I just don't see what the intended route of success was supposed to be for this mission. Next is Hammerfest. You're taking this base back from Nod, but you have to sneak in and recapture your base first. And it seems that the intended route starts out with your hover MRLSs going and securing a communication center, have an engineer capture it, and then reveals a power plant in the vicinity so you can destroy that to take out defenses, and it's like 15 feet away. On higher difficulties, it would appear that there's additional artillery units, which they seem to have a unique aggro range where if you have vision on them, then they can aggro on you. At this point in the mission, if artillery has aggro on you, you lose. For some reason, Nod artillery cannot miss, and it only needs to hit your individual vehicles and your transports twice to kill it. There is no way to get past at that point. At the very least on higher difficulties, that means you are punished for doing what the mission seems to want you to do. There are more missions that have designs that are frustrating. There are some missions that are fine. Usually the first couple of both campaigns are fine, and then their final missions are fine. But leading up to that point, or in between, it's just obnoxious sometimes. These two missions specifically are the missions that come to mind when I'm considering going back to Tiberian Sun and replaying the campaign. These two missions are the ones that have me put a pause on that and think, do I really want to? Mission designs, I think, need another look. Super weapons and powers. Tiberian Sun has the most disappointing super weapons in the series, if you can even call them that in this game. The ion cannon was supposed to be the decisive blow that won the previous Tiberium War, and then Nod typically had a nuclear missile, but now the ion cannon is rather pitiful. Can barely destroy one structure if it's one of the tier 1 structures, and the cluster missile is a little better and covers a little bit more area, but it's still just a little annoyance rather than an actual threat as a super weapon. Funny thing is though, the ion cannon has a 3x3 grid basically of effective radius, and that's technically the same as it was in Tiberium Dawn. The difference is the scale. In Tiberium Dawn, that could effectively be your entire army. Here, it might be just a couple squads or a tank. I think this needs to be brought up to Red Alert 2 standards, where when one is built, everyone sees it, everyone sees a countdown timer, and when it does go off, it covers a huge area. These need to be satisfying to launch, but in Tiberian Sun, they're just currently not. Then there's another offensive power that is just really, really annoying, and I think should just be removed outright, and that is the Seeker drone. You launch this thing, and this one drone just makes a beeline across the map, going straight for whatever random target it picks. Anything that isn't yours, it'll pick something at random, and whatever it targets is dead. There's nothing you can do about it. You can't shoot it, you can't damage it, you can't halt its movement, you can't even block it with a firestorm wall. Whatever target it has, that target is dead. And one time I could have sworn, early on, when the game was still fairly new, I was taking my time and building up, but then a seeker drone just flew in and taken out my construction yard before I had the means to replace it. That was pure random bad luck. But what makes things even more insulting is that the Brotherhood of Nod's seeker drone launching structure is the Temple of Nod. This is probably the coolest looking structure in the game that you can build, and it's the most iconic structure, like central to the Brotherhood's entire belief system, and yet its only purpose, its one singular purpose in Tiberian Sun, is to launch seeker drones. Nothing but disappointment. Next, glass houses. Another thing I've noticed in Tiberian Sun is, regardless of the tier, almost every unit feels like it's made of glass. GDI and Nod both feel like they have some rather squishy units compared to the rest of the series, honestly. So some health reworks could be necessary, but also something that feels like proper Tier 3 mass-producible units. Neither side, GDI or Nod, feel like they have adequately satisfying Tier 3 units. GDI has a disruptor tank, but it feels like that is more of a threat to you than the enemy, because the beam, it does a lot of damage over time when it concentrates its beam on a target, but it still damages anything between point A and point B, including your own units. So you have to carefully place them before you have them start shooting at anything. And in the heat of battle, I don't think you really have much time to get that all set up without taking a huge amount of losses. So I think some more actual Tier 3 units that feel like Tier 3 units would be nice. Also, one bonus thing, make the construction yard for both factions distinct. The construction yard makes sense for GDI's design. It looks militaristic and efficient, but then the exact same design for the Brotherhood of Nod's construction yard doesn't really fit. It kind of clashes with everything else, especially with the dark plating of most of the structures. So a new construction yard design for the Brotherhood of Nod would be great. Bonus. So in this category, this is more optional, but I would really like to see this done. I'd like to see a fully realized and fully playable Forgotten faction. An indicator that the fans would absolutely love to play as the Forgotten would be, for one, the Command & Conquer 3 mod, that it was a full campaign, that looked impressive, and the fact that when Tiberium Alliances was about to be released, say what you will about the game, one thing that seemed to get a lot of people excited was when they revealed the Forgotten emblem, and people were going, "We get to play as the Forgotten! Finally! After all this time, we get to play as the mutants! Sweet!" But no, it turned out that they were just basically a barbarian faction that you just kick if there was no one else to kick. A fully playable Forgotten would be awesome, in my opinion. There are some missions that seem to even imply that they might have or could have been a full faction at one point, and the ability to control Tiberium Fiends was a really cool idea, and seeing that realized in a full faction would have been really, really cool. And I don't think making them a full faction would interfere with the story too much. You just fight them once or twice throughout the campaign, and then they don't really have much of a in-game presence outside of a couple scenarios, but the fact that they are a full faction would have had no impact on what currently is in the game. So it would just be cool to see them as a full faction, even if they're most seen in the skirmish and multiplayer mode and not so much in the campaign, but it would be cool to see. Alternatively, there could be one other faction, Cabal. In Tiberian Sun Firestorm, Cabal takes over the cybernetic side of Brotherhood of Nod's military, and he ends up being just like a light Brotherhood of Nod, but his cyborg army is actually quite tanky and pretty threatening. But he does feel like you're just fighting a condensed version of Brotherhood of Nod, because infantry all he has is cyborgs and rocket troopers, and vehicles you got the usual range of tanks and all that, plus cyborg reapers. But in the end, he is just, by the final mission, just a combination of GDI and Nod to a degree. But making him a fully realized faction would be cool, and the architecture you see in the final mission around the Cabal core and his unique defenses and his core defender all looked really cool. So seeing a full faction built with that architecture would have been a lot of fun and a great addition. But then there is the complication of the fact that he's a unique faction now and isn't just ripping off Nod's units. That might require a bit of reworking of the factions, a little bit more than I already suggested. But if they can get it to work, I think it would be cool to have a fourth faction in the form of Cabal with his own stuff. At the very least, I would hope that the Forgotten would be a fully playable faction in a remastered collection. And the final bonus, though this one probably the least essential and just true bonus kudos if you pull this off, but the World Domination Tour. Tiberian Sun and Riddler 2 both had a world domination mode, but it seemed experimental, didn't quite work out so well. It was shut down before the official online was. But I do like the idea. So if perhaps this could be some kind of wide scale, massive scale world domination thing where many players are working together to try and gain control of the map, that could be cool. Where in the original Tiberian Sun and Riddler 2, it seemed like, or at least Riddler 2, I never got to log into the Tiberian Sun version. In Riddler 2, it felt more like just a, might as well have been like a tournament bracket system or something where it's just you and one player and you're both trying to take territories, but you know who's got the better skill. You know who's going to win after one or two matches. So what would end up happening is after one or two matches, whoever was losing would just quit. So you don't get to see the entire campaign play out, which is unfortunate. So maybe reworking it where it is like a persistent war for control over the map by all players, working together, choosing a faction, and trying to secure parts of the map with other players. That could be neat, but that might be a bit too big for a remaster, remake type of thing. But if that's included, that could be a lot of fun. So this has been my suggestions for a Command & Conquer Remastered Collection 2, where Riddler 2, I'd say, would have a remaster, and maybe a little bit of a mechanical tweak with the building sub-tab system, where Tiberian Sun, I'd say, needs more of a remake. Again, Tiberian Sun, I want it to be my favorite, but there are so many things that hold it back that make it just a little more annoying. But there are so many cool ideas, I just wish it worked out better. So this has been my suggestions. Let me know what you think. What do you want to see in a remaster or remake of Tiberian Sun Riddler 2? Let me know. Hope you enjoyed. Until next time, take care.